I have a lot of fun when it comes to making these glass wine glasses with these permanent coasters on the bottom. They're pretty versatile. You could really do a lot of different things with it. So of course today I had to do something that was Halloween inspired. To get started, I headed over to what is now the $1.75 tree. It is no longer $1.25, I'm just saying, but still a good deal, for one wine glass. And they have all kinds of different shapes and colors. I got this smoky looking one, which is perfect for our Halloween theme today. And the reason why I'm showing you struggling taking the bottom label off is because I'm going to show you a tip on how to get these off easier. You take a little WD-40, which if you don't have WD-40, they do sell it at Dollar Tree as well, and you just spritz that on really good, making sure it's fully coated, and you're going to set that off to the side and let it sit for about 5 minutes. So while that sits and gets soaked into that label, we are going to go ahead and make sure that our coaster is cleaned up. So I got this off Amazon. I like the edges of it. I used this before for a different project, and so I'm just going to use it again, but you can also use straight edged ones. You can use any type of pattern design mold that you would like, but anything that's meant for a coaster fits perfectly for the bottom of these wine glasses. So I just like to take a piece of painter's tape and I'm going to clean up any extra residue from the last project I did in this coaster. All right, that's ready to go, nice and clean. Now we're going to slide our cup back over and we are going to get that label off of here. So I forgot to put gloves on. You might want to put gloves on for this. You'll smell like a mechanic, I guess, for a little bit. It's kind of oily, so just make sure you put some gloves on unless you want to smell like this for a day or two. But everything should peel up with it, even the stickiness. So the whole stickiness, everything should peel right up with that. I love this trick. It's so much more easier than having to soak it and all that stuff with water. It comes off so much easier. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good wash, and voila, there we go, nice and shiny and ready to go. Now, most of the time, these wine glasses have a little indent on the bottom of it, and I've learned that you kind of need to fill those in so that way it doesn't make this weird mark on the bottom of your coaster. So I'm simply going to use a little bit of UV resin because this indent on here is very small. If it was a bigger indent, I wouldn't use UV resin, I would use regular epoxy because you really need to make sure that you're able to get in there with your UV light and cure this properly. So I'm just going to use straight up UV resin. You could obviously color it however way you would like. To match whatever you're doing, but I just used the clear UV resin for this. And I just kind of helped it a little bit by swirling it around just a tad to make sure that all the UV resin got out to the edge the best that it could. I'm going to hit it up with a torch, popping any little bubbles, and then I'm going to cure it really good with a UV lamp. If after you cure it and you press down in the center and it's still squishy, you need to make sure you come up from underneath and hit it up with your UV lamp and from all sides so it's not squishy. If it's squishy, that means it's not cured. Okay, so we're going to get started on the coaster portion here. I have 30 milliliters of epoxy. I dug through my cabinet. I think I've used this on my last tutorial as well. I'm just really into this color right now, okay? What is it, Wisteria? It's really pretty, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and use that, and I am going to mix it with some other stuff that I have in my cabinet. So let me go ahead and put some in there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this stuff called Galaxy. It just has like little stars and stuff. I don't know. Again, it kind of goes with the theme, kind of looks potion-y, So again, I'm going to just put as much as I need to in there with it. Now, you want to make sure that it's not so thick with glitter that you can't pour it out. You guys know what I mean. If you put too much glitter into it, it will get so thick and it won't pour out properly. You just want to make sure that you just do a little bit at a time so that way it still has pretty good movement to it. But you also want to make sure that you put enough glitter into it so that way whenever it does cure, it doesn't separate. You know what I mean? So as you get going, it's one of those things that you'll just kind of learn over time. And I'll show you here in a second what I like to do. There's a process where I look at the stick, and depending on how much is in between, like when I look at the glitter, you can see the spacing with the stick. If when you pull it up and you look and there's too much of the clear between whenever you pull the stick up to look at it, there's not enough glitter. But see how there's still a lot of movement, but there's not much spacing in between that glitter and the clear epoxy. That's exactly what you want. You want it to be pretty thick with the glitter, but not too thick. Now we're going to take our mixture and we're going to put it about halfway up of our coaster mold. You need enough space because we are going to be putting our wine glass right down into this. So you just want to make sure you bring it about halfway up. Then we're going to simply take our wine glass and we're going to center that the best that we can down into our coaster mold. Then we're going to come through and fill up the best that we can with the rest of our mixture. You don't want to come all the way over the top. You want to leave just a teensy tiny gap at the top because we are going to come through and add some pearls down into this, making it look nice and bubbly for us. So you just want to get that filled in the best that you can. And then I came through and I'm going to spritz it with some rubbing alcohol. That's going to help out with any little bubbles that might be on the surface. But you see how there's like, it's just the tiniest gap at the top there. So that way our pearls can sink down into that and it not overflow on us. So again, these pearls were bought right in the floral section, which happened to be right across from the crafting section at the Dollar Tree as well. You see how it used to have the $1.25 tag on it, but they put a little circle on it because it's not $1.25 anymore, you know? So, so now we're just going to take as many beads as we like. I'm just going to do half of my wine glass. You could do all the way around if you'd like. However, wherever your imagination takes you, let it take you there. But I'm going to go ahead and just do half of my wine glass with this because I want to add a quote on the other half. All right, super easy so far, right? There we go. So the hardest part's going to be getting it to where my flattest or my most level surface is, which is where my turners are at. So now I got to pick it up and put it over by my turners. Maybe you should just fill it up wherever your space is so you don't have to do this awkwardly like I am. Let that cure completely, and while that cured, I went ahead and printed out a quote, which I am going to do a reverse weeding for this because it's so tiny. It's such a small area. See, I only have a very small area to work with here. But here we go. She's ready to go. So let's go ahead and demold her. And after you get it demolded, if there's any little flashing that you think might be a nuisance, just go ahead and take a razor knife and just gently cut that away. We're going to be adding some green bubbly goo over top anyway, so you won't really see this after it's all said and done. So for the reverse weeding, I'm just putting the whole entire piece, the quotes in there, and then I'm going to peel away the flashing around the quote in this manner, so that way all the little teeny pieces stay with the quote. All right, there we go. That is ready to get sealed down. So to seal that down, we're going to take a little bit of UV resin and we're going to lay that right over the top of it to get it sealed down for us. And I'm only doing the area from where the pearls are located and around. So not on the pearls, just in that purple area where the quote is at that I laid the UV resin down. So for projects like this where I know I'm going to be tinting the epoxy anyways, I'll tend to use my epoxy that might have discolored over time. It's still good. It just has a yellow hue to it, which is perfectly fine because we're going to be adding a little bit of this neon green epoxy dye into it. Now, after I got a little bit down into it, because you don't want to add too much of this stuff, any type of additives, you never want to add too much into your epoxy because it could mess with the cure. I know this stuff's specially formulated for this, but I mean, if you're squirting a whole bunch into this such a tiny amount, it could mess with the cure of the epoxy. So just a little bit goes a long ways, but I noticed it is pretty translucent. And I didn't want it translucent. I wanted it to be more opaque, so I added just a squirt of white acrylic paint into it as well. And there we go. It's the color that I would like. Now, I did not have any type of thickening agent on hand to help this process. Sometimes I'll use cornstarch, sometimes I'll use other products to thicken my epoxy up so I don't have to do it the old school way, which is waiting 45 minutes for it to thicken up on its own. But today I had to do it the old school way, and I had to just sit and babysit it for 45 minutes until it got thick enough to where I could pour it and it wouldn't be a complete mess when I did pour it out. If you're doing it the old school fashioned way like I am here, just letting it get thick on its own, you really do need to babysit it because it could flash cure. If you leave it be and not stir it every so often, it has a tendency to flash cure and then it'll get all smoky. And what you want to do if that happens is you just want to make sure that it's in an area that it's not going to, like on a silicone mat or something. Or you can put it outside if you need to, if you don't feel comfortable with that. But if it flash cures on you, then you're going to start over again. So just give it a stir every once in a while and check it when you have time. You could also do a thing where you set timers for yourself so you don't forget about it. But I didn't have anything else going on, so I just sat here and did this for 45 minutes. Full disclosure, because this is just how I am and this is how I've just been with my dreps ever since the beginning. I should have waited a little bit longer. It needed to be just a tad thicker than what it is right here, but I'm impatient, so I went ahead and started pouring down anyways, okay? All right, there we go. Now you can see better. So we're just going to take our Bubbly Witch's Brew stuff and we are going to lay that down over top of our beads, making sure that everything gets covered. Now you can leave some of these pearls exposed a little bit so that way it does look like bubbles poking out of the top, you know, so you could do that however you guys want to do it. Now I also do let mine drip down the sides. Again, you don't have to do that, but I thought that was kind of cool looking. You just again want to be so careful when you do that because you don't want it to be like a huge weird puddle off to the side, you know. You want it to just be a very small, very delicate drip off to the side. You don't want it to be like over consuming the bottom of the cup, okay? So just be careful with your drips. Now there was one that was starting to run away on me here, so I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to just pull that away. And you want to make sure you don't make it a weird shape because it will cure whatever shape you smear it to. So you want it to be more of a drip. So I just want to clean that up to make sure that it doesn't look weird once it's cured. So after I got my green goo down, I am going to come through and I'm taking some half pearls. You could add some, whatever you'd like actually. Add whatever you'd like to it. The sky's the limits, wherever your imagination takes you. I can't stress that enough. I'm just going to take some half pearls and I'm going to lay that down right into my bubbly goop here. I do kind of wish I could have found like some bats or like eyeballs or something. That would have been kind of neat, but I couldn't find any of that kind of stuff. You guys let me know. Where do you get your little doodads to go on your stuff? Because I couldn't find any of that. Micro pearls or beads for the longest time. I've used these in numerous projects of mine. They look like just little microscopic bubbles. And so I'm going to go ahead, of course, and lay that down on this as well. And you see that gap in the front. You want to make sure that your bubbly goo isn't covering up your quote as well. So you want to make sure that you bring that goop far enough back so that way when it does start to lay flat, it won't accidentally cover up your quote as you go. And you got to be careful. These little guys, they bounce everywhere. So as I was going, they were just bouncing all over the place. So I just started sprinkling it down with my fingers so that way, there we go. But it's going to lay down into that epoxy and just give it more of a look. So it almost looks like it'll be a bubble trapped inside. So I know we don't want bubbles, but for this we do, okay? So you want that trapped bubble look inside of this for sure. Now before I just let it do its thing, I'm gonna come through and adjust any little pearls if I need to. So you just wanna make sure that it's not gonna have anything weird poking up. You wanna make sure that everything's gonna stay put for you and not have weird shapes to it. Don't jiggle it. You wanna keep it nice and flush against that silicone mat as well. Because if you jiggle it, it'll accidentally seep up underneath. You don't want that, okay? So after you're done fussing with it, you just want to let it sit and you want to let it cure overnight, and then she is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.